Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game from the semi-final match of the Chess.com Global Chess Championship Finals. It is Nihal Sarin versus Anish Giri, and we've covered their fifth game yesterday. The first four games were very nice, but the fifth one where Anish won with that brilliancy was just a masterpiece. And we said that well, it's now it's up to Nihal to bounce back, and well, did he bounce back or what? This is game 6 of their match. Played Nihal having the white pieces, and it's just a spectacular game. So let's dive straight into it and see how and why it happened. So Nihal has the white pieces, and he opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, Anish goes for pawn to e6, and bishop to f4. This is a very, very rare continuation. In fact, it is the 7th most popular continuation in this position. We have pawn to d5 by Anish, c captures, knight captures, and now as the bishop is attacked, the bishop back to g3, pawn to c5, attacking white center here, and pawn to e4, challenging the knight. We have knight to f6, and now knight to d2, just guarding the d4, knight to d2, not knight to e2, sort of giving up the d4 pawn, and it seems like you shouldn't be able to do it, but you know, if you want, you can capture it, and it's not a new move. The position has been reached before. In fact, this year in the US Chess Championship, Hans Niemann had it against Ray Robson. Ray Robson continued with knight to c6, and he won the game with the black pieces. But here, Anish just says c captures on d4. Show me why this is bad for me. And okay, pawn to e5. Nihal grabs more space in the center, chases away the knight from f6, knight to d5, and knight g to f3. We have knight to c6, and now pawn to a3, taking care of that b4 square. And now comes knight d to e7. There is a game where bishop to e7 was played, but here we have knight d to e7, and it is now, as of move 10, that we have a completely new game. Nihal goes bishop to d3, and now you see that with the pawn being on e5, it's a bit of an issue for black. You can't put a knight on f6, and you kind of want a castle kingside, and with the light square bishop controlling this diagonal, you know that the white queen is coming to e2, then to e4. It's not gonna be all that easy to defend your kingside, so the pawn sacrifice is definitely justified. And Anish just goes knight to f7. He puts pressure on the dark square bishop, and also he closes up this diagonal. So bishop to f4, Nihal says, I'm not even allowing you knight captures on g3, and he hints at the idea of advancing the pawn to g4. So bishop to e7 by Anish, we have pawn to g4, and now knight to h4. We have captures on h4, bishop captures, and now knight to f3. This is how the knight is reintroduced into the game. The bishop is now under attack, bishop back to e7, and now queen to e2. And it's a big problem for Anish how to continue the game. And now, just to give you an example, if you castle, you can play this. Black does not lose by force, but it's very hard to play it. For example, queen e4, now you threaten checkmate, and after g6, bishop to h6. You attack the rook, and now black would have to find this very nice f5 move, where if you capture, e captures an f6 en passant, then rook captures, so your rook is no longer under fire. If g captures, then also rook captures on f5, and if you play something like queen to f4, then you would have to go into this f captures on g4 idea. Open up an attack towards the queen, you have to give up the rook on f8, and then queen to a5 check, forcing king to f1, and now even g captures on f3. And while you can play this, for example, bishop captures, knight captures on h4 with h5 coming, it's not all that great. You will be able to defend, and it's okay to play this, but it's a rapid game, so I mean, it doesn't look like you should be able to play it. This is like only if you were an engine you would play this. So instead we have pawn to a5, and this is also very nice because Anish wants to push the pawn all the way to a4, and if Nihal castles queenside, which he probably will, then you can shift the knight into the attack, maybe knight a5, knight to b3, also the rook can be shifted into the attack. And that's how you will get counterplay, as now you know that it's going to be a race. So here we have pawn to h4, and now pawn to h5. We have g captures on h5, rook captures on h5, and now rook to g1, putting pressure on g7, and Anish has to choose whether he will defend it with bishop to f8 or king to f8. He decides to go king to f8, and here Nihal just castles queenside, and now it's definitely a race. And Anish should continue with his plan of pawn to a4 and then bringing the rook into the attack and so on. But he goes for queen to d5, which is a very deep idea, only it's not really working in this position. Okay, the immediate threat of queen to a2 is very easily parried with king to b1. And now comes Anish's plan. Look at this, rook to f5. He offers the exchange here, but if Nihal goes for this bishop captures, pawn captures, then he frees up the e6 square for his bishop, and it's not going to be easy to play this. To give you an example, let's say knight g5, bishop captures on g5, bishop captures, and queen to e4 check already puts a lot of pressure on white. You don't even have to go for this bishop to e6 idea. Now you have to trade queens, and black has this beautiful central pawn structure controlling a lot of squares here. And yes, you are down the exchange, but with these pawns you will be fine. But instead we have bishop to e4. Nihal not being greedy for the rook. We have queen to b3, and now comes knight to d2, attacking the black queen. And here Anish plays pawn to d3, because if you just move the queen back and then give white time, queen to g4 is coming and you are not going to be able to defend this. So here pawn to d3, and it's a very tricky move because there is only one move that wins the game for Nihal, and you guys of course will be tested to see if you can solve this. So feel free to pause the video and win the game for Nihal while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding your way throughout this entire mess, because you really have to calculate a lot. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop captures on d3. Just for fun, I will show you what happens if you go for queen to g4. Here, okay, you probably already noticed that queen to c2 check can be played, but look at this. Queen c2 check, king a1, now comes bishop captures on a3. And now what do you play? Checkmate is being threatened by black now. You have to play queen captures on g7 check, king e8, queen to g8 check, king to d7. And now what do you play? If you capture the bishop, which seems like it's your only option, but then knight b4 and black wins. There's no defense. Queen a2 will be checkmate, and if you capture the knight, then just a nice discovered checkmate from the rook. So the bishop cannot be captured. After king to d7, you would have to play knight to c4, attack the bishop, defend the b2 pawn, and now after the knight is captured, you will play bishop captures on f5, and after bishop captures on b2 check, king captures, and queen to c2 check, there will be nothing better for white than to go for a nice perpetual after queen to a1, because the black king is also under a lot of pressure with the d3 pawn hanging, so you would have to settle for a nice draw here, king b2, queen b4 check, something like this. So that's what would happen if you just go for the attack with queen to g4. After bishop captures on d3, you eliminate any and all counterplay. Now queen to c2 check is no longer an option, and now there's just no good way to continue. Probably best for Anish would be to give up the queen here for the rook and bishop on f4, something like captures, and rook captures on f4, but still it's not going to be possible. It's basically a rook and a dark square bishop for a queen. It's not all that great. Maybe if your pieces were nicely developed, but not like this. So instead, after bishop captures on d3, we have knight to d4 by Anish, going after the white queen, queen to e3, now putting pressure on the knight, and queen to a4, defending the knight. We have knight to c4, now blocking the queen's defense of the knight on d4, and now just knight to c2. Anish finds a way to save material, but it doesn't really help him all that much. So bishop captures on c2, attacks the queen, queen recaptures the piece with queen captures on c4, and now the cleanest and quickest way to win this, it's bishop to h6. Beautifully played by Nihal. Maybe I even put this for the position on the thumbnail, as it just leaves black without a move. So you can easily resign here. No one would blame you. Point is that if the bishop is captured, queen captures on h6, king to e8, now comes rook to g8 check, and after bishop to f8, just queen captures on f8 checkmate. The rook, of course, covers the entire d file. So after bishop h6, Anish started running with king to e8, but now Nihal just played rook captures on g7, and it was in this position on move 29 that Anish Giri resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Now, rook to g8 is coming. The f8 square is covered by the bishop. That will be checkmate, or very, very quickly you will get checkmated. And if you try something like f6 to give your king a little bit of breathing room here, just bishop captures on f5. And now the bishop cannot be captured because just e captures on f6, and you will not be able to withstand all of this pressure on the e file. And if you don't capture the bishop, it doesn't really help you all that much. You can play something like bishop to d7, maybe try to hide the king this way. But then bishop g6 check, king to d8, and you get checkmated this way. Queen b6 check, king to c8, and now rook to g8 check, and there are no defenses here. All of the squares here are covered by white's pieces, so whatever you block with will just get captured in the end. Once you give up any material that has to be given, you will finish with bishop to d8, and then rook or queen captures on d8 will be checkmate. So yeah, after rook captures on g7, Nihal not only bounces back, but he bounces back with a vengeance after Anish won that brilliancy in round 5. If you haven't seen it, it's my previous video, do check it out. Anish truly played a brilliant game with the white pieces. And then something very interesting happened. The game 7 and game 8 ended in a draw, and they had to play an Armageddon game, and in Armageddon Nihal was victorious, and he is the one who advances to the finals of the Chess.com Global Chess Championship Finals, where he will meet the winner of the match, Hikaru versus Wesley. So if you haven't seen it, I will spoil it now, so don't listen. It will be Wesley So versus Nihal Sarin. It was quite a battle between Hikaru and Wesley, but Wesley was able to. I think they started with 6 draws, and then Wesley won the 2 final games with Hikaru blundering a rook in time trouble in game 8 or something like that. It was a true spectacle if you've seen it live. But yeah, it's going to be a very nice match. Nihal versus Wesley. We're going to see what happens. I'm sure it's going to be one great match. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, big congratulations to everyone who found that idea. It's very tempting to go for queen to g4 right away, but if you realize you have to eliminate the pawn, that already makes you a very, very mature player. So yeah, once again, really hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Martin Georg Paparik, Sofus Svereson Fine, Seshadri Subramanian, Erin is the best fiancé, and Marcus Grobel for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.